spoke with the man who's going to call the BYU Santa Clara game on BYU radio tonight. Why not bring in the man who is the face of tonight's game on ESPN? Roxy Bernstein. Roxy, welcome back, man.
Hi, guys. It's good to be here.
The face of Shirley's Bakery.
Yes.
Oh boy.
In the studio.
It's a bad look for me when I can look out my window at my hotel and I can see it, because it's just they're haunting me. You must come have a cinnamon roll. The cookies are here.
They're
Great.
so
That's
good.
all I need right now.
They're so good.
Oh.
Speaking of food, Roxy, you had one of the better metaphors that I can ever remember, and we talked about this at the last game you called for BYU. That is, to help explain St. Mary's basketball, you compared the Gales to In-N-Out Burger. Explain this wonderful metaphor to the masses.
So everybody's familiar with In-N-Out Burger, obviously. And they don't do a lot of things, right? It's pretty basic.
It's simple. Yeah.
It's simple. They follow a system, and they stick to it, and they don't stray from it. Well, that's St. Mary's. I mean, St. Mary's, you know what's coming. They're going to pick and roll you to the high heavens. They're going to space the floor. They're one of the most skilled teams in America. They do what they do, and they're not going to change no matter what you throw at them. So they're a lot like In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger is not going to change. You don't see chicken at In-N-Out Burger. You don't. You have the burgers, you have the fries, you have the shakes, and the sodas. And that's all they got, right?
There's a few things off the menu to.
Well, if you're going to go animal style, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's like
All of a sudden they fast break.
But that's a Randy Bennett counter. Okay, if you're going to cheat on the pick and roll, okay, we'll slip it. And that's like the animal style. That's the counter that St. Mary's throws at you. So you got to be ready for that.
Do you have any other analogies to West Coast Conference teams?
No, not really. No,
I would love to see all 10.
You're really going to make me work? All right, next time I come on, I have to have 10.
Then you just
and I can equate it, to different fast food play. Okay, who is El Pollo Loco? Who's the Chick-fil-A?
Pacific.
Yeah, we were joking about that. We think maybe BYU is Chick-fil-A. I don't know. Closed on Sundays.
Closed on Sundays.
Okay, I get it. I get it. Understand. Yeah. That's a very good one.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was that, but now it's different because BYU is a different style.
We'll
I don't
see.
know.
Okay, who's the McDonald's then? I mean, is it Gonzaga? But do you go back with history?
We almost need to go up a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, then you look at a school like USF, for example, had the great track record with national championships in the 50s, and Bill Russell and Casey Jones, and the great history that they have. But I know it's been some lean years as of late. But what do you make of them? And who?
Yeah,
I got to put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah.
All right,
project.
And maybe there's a current, and then there's a historical. So now there's 20 restaurants.
Oh, boy.
The homework assignment is real.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no.
Okay, let's talk about the matchup that you're going to call tonight.
Yeah.
BYU and Santa Clara. This has not been favorable to Santa Clara with the exception of last year's game there. Why is this such a good matchup for BYU, in your opinion?
Well, I think you go back to the first matchup this season and how efficient BYU was offensively. 79% shooting in the first half? Are you kidding me?
Crazy.
That is insane to put together a half like that. Right now, I think Santa Clara is a little thin in terms of the depth and talent. And I think it's made it tough for Herb Sendek, and he's trying to build his program the right way. It's just not a good fit when you're dealing with the power and the size that BYU has right now. So in this particular matchup, you look at what BYU brings to the table. In this, as you guys well know and your fans know, it's a different BYU team than we've seen in the past. This is, I think, as good a defensive team that I've seen from BYU that as long as I can remember, to be honest with you. That's what when Karan Butler and I were here for the LMU game.
The now retired Karan Butler.
Then yes. Yeah. We're going to have some fun with that tonight. He doesn't know that. I can get away with it because I know Karan's not watching right now. But as far as what we did our open last time, I think it was the first time in recent history that anybody talked about BYU's defense to open up a broadcast. Because I think that's the story with this team. Yeah, Yoli Childs and Elijah Bryant are great offensive players. But to me, the story with this BYU team is defense. And when you guys were talking with Greg earlier about their chances in Vegas, can they make a run and win the tournament? I think this team might be better equipped because the defense is going to be there. Defense shows up. Offense doesn't show up every night, but defense does. And I think that gives BYU a fighting chance in Vegas.
So the Cougars shoot 8 for 44 combined over the two losses last week, the head scratcher against LMU, and then they compete against Gonzaga, only 3 for 20 from beyond the arc, but It's a tie game with under 3 minutes to play, right? So is BYU basketball, because of defense, overall, are they better than the team that you have watched over the last few years?
Well, they're certainly not as fun to watch because those teams the last number of years, you'd come and you'd see great offense, whether it was Hawes, Fisher, you go on and on with the guys that could really fill it up, right? Well, now, yes, they have guys that can score, but this is a team that's, I think, built from the defensive end to the offensive end, even though there's some really skilled players offensively. I have a hard time saying they're a better team right now. Let's see how this thing plays out. Like, people are ready to label this as St. Mary's best team that Randy Bennett has had. To this point, I agree with that. But we still have to see what's going to happen come the WCC tournament, the NCAA tournament for St. Mary's, and there's still a lot of season to go, even though we're getting toward the stretch here in February.
Let's turn this into St. Zaga Nation because we talk about those two a lot. Okay, St. Mary's beats Gonzaga in the Kennel by 3. Okay, they're up a game on Gonzaga. Is St. Mary's clearly the #1 team in the league, or is Gonzaga on their heels? Because Saturday night's game is big time between those two.
I can't wait for that one, Saturday night. That's going to be awesome. St. Mary's right now, yeah, they are the best team in the league, but Gonzaga's right there. There's a little bit of separation, but if the Zags win the game on Saturday night, then they're back even. So I don't think there's that much of a gap, even though St. Mary's has been on an amazing roll since they lost to Georgia in overtime at the Wooden Legacy. This St. Mary's team, why I think it could be the best team that Randy Bennett has had, is they have 3 senior leaders. When you look at Nahr and Hermanson and certainly Landale, and the pieces around them all fit. And I did their game last week against USF, and I just came away just amazed at how good they were on both ends of the floor. USF wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but St. Mary's was in that game, and they made USF bad in that game. But also, when you look at Gonzaga, replacing 4 starters from a team, essentially 4 starters from a team that went all the way to the national championship game. They have talent, they have depth, they have size, but I don't know if they have the experience that St. Mary's does, and that's why I think you have to give the edge to the Gales.
Roxy Bernstein of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation. He's going to call the game between Santa Clara and BYU in the Marriott Center. I hope you get a nap today at some point, Roxy, because it's going to be a late one, that's for sure. What do you expect tonight? We already pointed out that BYU is typically dominant against BYU. Is there any reason to think that it won't be another blowout in favor of BYU?
I mean, all signs point that way, but that's why we play the games. And I'm anxious to see how BYU responds coming off that weekend. And look, you lose at the Kennel, there's no shame in that. The crushing blow was that loss at LMU. That's a game you can't lose.
Yeah, at-large chances.
That's it. Yeah, I was thinking, BYU was still kind of hovering around, had an opportunity for an at-large, and then you can't lay an egg like that at LMU. Now, if you happen to beat the Zags here, let's say the final game of the regular season, and you get to the WCC championship game, which means you'll have to beat either Gonzaga or BYU or St. Mary's rather to get there, I think BYU would still be at the table in terms of a bid for an at-large. I think that people are going to try to hold that LMU game against them maybe, but I think that if you come down the stretch showing you're playing well, and if you get 2 signature wins, whether it's the Zags twice, whether it's the Zags and St. Mary's, I think you're going to have an opportunity for an at-large. But, as long as you're going to be in that championship game, might as well take the drama out of the situation and just get the automatic bid.
Win it.
Why not?
Just win 3 games. Come on, Roxy. You deserve a cinnamon roll, man.
Go hit up Shirley's Bakery.
Why are you doing that to
business,
me?
Man.
You're torturing me right now.
You've earned it. You will have really earned it once you come back with 20 analogies.
But I got my autograph picture.
Yes,
That's
you did.
all that matters.
Now that is better than a cinnamon roll, said nobody.
No, the Greg Wrubell picture is actually better than a cinnamon
you
roll.
love that picture?
I might need an autograph picture of that to bring home with me.
A relic for sure. 13-year-old Greg Wrubell. Roxy, thanks for waking up, coming hanging out with us.
I'll see you boys tonight.
All right.
We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.
BYU and Santa Clara tonight on ESPNU, 11 p.m. Eastern, 9 Mountain.